Last week we explored the rise and fall of the great kingdom of Númenor. This week we're going to take a look at the journey of some of the former Men of Númenor as they made their way through Middle-earth and finally became the Dúnedain Rangers of the North among the hills of Evendim. With the fall of Númenor, there were essentially two main groups of survivors, those who were faithful to the Valar and were led by Elendil, and those who were loyal to the king and succumbed to the shadow of Sauron. Those who fell to the shadow of Sauron became wicked men who settled mostly in the east. Their story will be told later. To those who followed Elendil, a warning was given before Númenor was destroyed. They fled to Eriador in Middle-earth, where they founded two kingdoms, Gondor and Arnor. The Men of Númenor became known as the Dúnedain and were much longer lived than the Men of Middle-earth with whom they settled. The term Dúnedain could sometimes be reserved for the direct descendants of Elendil, but could equally be used to refer to anyone descended from the Men of Númenor. Many of those Númenorians who were not highborn married freely with the indigenous peoples of Eriador. This meant that the descendants of these Dúnedain would begin to have much shorter lifespans, though potentially still more than the average man not descended from Númenor. In Gondor, the direct descendants of Elendil ruled after the end of the Second Age. Over many generations, these Dúnedain rulers became increasingly disconnected from their people, and so a steward was installed to take over the day-to-day management of the realm from the main city of Minas Tirith. The stewards were chosen from men of Gondor who were advanced in years, so they would not be required to go to war. Their duty was to the running of Gondor from Minas Tirith, especially if the king himself went to war. In the year 2050 of the Third Age, the line of kings of Gondor ended with the king Eärnur. Eärnur was a mighty warrior but had no interest in family and so produced no heir. After defeating the forces of the Witch King in what remained of the fallen kingdom of Arnor, Eärnur returned to Gondor to take up his throne after the death of his father. Years later, the Witch King challenged King Eärnur for a second time, the first challenge being refused on the advice of the steward of Gondor. Eärnur rode out towards Mordor to answer the challenge and was never seen again, though he left behind his crown, surely knowing that he rode to his death. With the fall of Arnor, the Dúnedain were now in the position of having no lands of their own. Despite no longer having a kingdom, the Dúnedain formerly of Arnor still nonetheless see themselves as defenders of Middle-earth against the forces of Sauron. As such, they settled themselves in and around areas most vulnerable to attack. They became rangers, wandering the wilds to harry the forces of evil. Many of the settlements of men became more distant and as a result mistrustful of these men of the north. The ways of the rangers were kept secret, and this gave rise to no small amount of suspicion amongst the Bree-landers. But the Dúnedain Rangers patrolled the borders of Bree-land, protecting the people from those who would do them harm, even though the inhabitants know nothing of this. The Rangers may often be identified as wearing greys and greens with a cloak clasped by a six-pointed star. When the last remnant of Arnor fell at the Battle of Fornost, Elrond of Rivendell took it upon himself to protect the line of Isildur. He kept the relics of that line, including the broken remains of Narsil, the sword which defeated Sauron at the end of the Second Age, in Rivendell for safekeeping. A descendant of Isildur remained a potent threat to Sauron, and without lands and armies to keep them safe, Elrond arranged that those born into this line were raised in secret in Rivendell. The best way of staying safe was for the Dúnedain to become wholly unremarkable, even though they continued to do remarkable things in keeping Eriador safe. The Rangers have fought orcs and other enemies of the Free Peoples whenever they have attempted to invade the lands which used to make up Arnor, most notably the Bree-lands and even the Shire. Indeed, the former leader of the Rangers, Arathorn, died fighting orcs alongside the sons of Elrond. Now his son, Aragorn, who was only an infant when Arathorn died, works towards the final destruction of the Master Ring and the final end of Sauron's threat in Middle-earth. And that is the story of how the Dúnedain went from great kings and champions of men to simple rangers wandering the wilds. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please click the like button and subscribe for further content. Comment down below and share with others who may also be interested. And until next time, I'll see you later.